Emily, it's
Okay.
good to have you here. I'm very excited to chat to you about your process in creating the music score for the film. So I just kind of wanted to know, like, what's your background in, like, what have you done before that kind of has led you to doing what you do, basically, as a musician, a composer?
Oh, how far back do you want me to go? Um, so my background, okay, so like weirdly enough, before I decided that I wanted to do composing for film, I actually was a vocal performance major. And then I started to realize how much I just loved the creation of music more so
Mhm.
than performing and
Yeah,
singing and things like that. And so then I've always loved film music and always felt really like emotionally attached to that.
yeah,
And so that's kind of what got me into film composing. And then yeah, I've just like before I worked on your project, I had mainly just kind of done like a lot of film shorts,
yeah,
like an advertisement, or like other like little like composition things that aren't related to visuals, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really it's a cool idea because what you just stayed there because sometimes you realize you go into something, right? And you realize maybe you're good at the same industry, but in a certain section, like you have to specialize in one section of the music industry. Like you say, like, I only sing in the shower. I can't go in the recording studio and start recording myself. I promise. Like everyone thinks they're musicians when they're in the shower, and you're just like singing away, And then when they
Yeah.
put you in the recording studio, you're like, I don't think this is what I'm meant to be doing.
Aw.
Yeah, but I know what you mean with like sort of specializing in creating music. So that's where maybe your passion was always at. And I think being able to even have that experience as a performer kind of help you realize where your strengths are. So just basically saying that, I'm just curious to know like if your top five music scores of all time. I know this is a quite like a hard question to ask, but you must have like some music that inspired you, like that you listen to and you feel like, oh, this is cinematic, and it's kind of kept your fire within you burning to keep creating, to keep doing what you do. Like, what's your top five movies?
Oh my gosh, Elliot.
I'm putting you on the spot. Yes, this is gonna happen. That's it.
Um, you know, I kind of have a roundabout way of answering that question
Yeah.
because it's probably not quite what you're looking for, but it's more of like I don't have like a top five, if that makes sense. It's more of like I just always remember ever since I was like a teenager, like going into films and just being like so like captured by like the music with the film. And so it's like whenever I heard, any composer that had to do with film, I was just like, oh my gosh, like that would be so cool to do that.
Yeah.
And like I mean, sure, there's, uh, who like Hans Zimmer, John Williams,
Yeah.
uh, oh, what's the name? I can't think of the name, but the Final
Yeah.
Fantasy 8 composer. I love him.
Mhm.
Um, Nobuo, oh, I can never say his name right. Nobuo
Yeah.
Uematsu or something like that. So like I know those are just names of composers. So like, but yeah, I can't think of like specific like scores that I'm just like, oh my gosh. I mean, because there's
Yeah.
so many,
Yeah.
like I think anything that captures that emotion and just like gives you the feels when you're watching it.
Oh, nice one. So do you like the one from I don't know if you watched the movie The Pirates of the Caribbean. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer. Oh, that's pretty
Yeah.
awesome, right? Like it's got that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
that's quite interesting, right? Because I'm also like I think my niece recently said that uncle, you get old because sometimes she used to come to my car and finds me listen to some of the music score for movies, but obviously she didn't understand because every time she came to my car, I was like, straight on hip hop, some R&B, and then sometimes she walks in and she's like, dun, 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 and she's like, what's that? Obviously, she does not understand, but I think the older you get to appreciate that sort of music that sounds like that. So that's why I do love music for films, and I do save those in my playlist. I like the theme from Game
Yeah.
of Thrones. There's so many movies like Dune, E.T., Pirates of the Caribbean, all the composers you've mentioned. It's just I'm a big fan of music, and I think it plays a big role in storytelling. So just tell me, like, I'm curious to know your creative process. Like, once you have a script, what do you do next?
Oh, so so usually what I do, like, and I did this with your script. I think yours was the first script I did this with, and I started to do it when I read other scripts
Yeah.
because a lot of times I wouldn't always get the script, to be honest. Like if
Mhm.
it's like just like a film short, sometimes people would just kind of tell me the general story.
Mhm.
But when I've read a script,
Mhm.
like I kind of immediately like just start like getting this like vibe. I don't know how to explain it. Like I kind of get this vibe as I'm reading it and like thinking, okay, well, this is where this is being said. So I can kind of imagine like music being in that scene. And what I also do is because I feel like when I read things, I don't always grasp it all. So then I also put on, so this could sound so weird. I also put on one of those things, I forget what you call it, but it reads it like it's an audio, like it, so it takes a text and it reads it.
Yeah.
So I'll be reading it and have the audio reading it as well to my ears. So I'll be doing both at the same time.
Oh.
And then that helps me kind of like absorb it and
Mhm.
kind of read it faster. And I just feel like it helps me kind of absorb the story more. And so as I'm reading it, that's kind of my thought, is just kind of really getting a feel for the characters and kind of noticing like with the writing where I'm kind of pulled towards like certain things that are happening in the story. And then I think, okay, well, that could be a good moment for music, that kind of thing.
Mhm. So when you're reading, do you come up with like, I know this is kind of like weird. Sometimes when we're reading something or a comic book or a scene on the script, I'm imagining it in my head how I'm gonna film it. I'm kind of like getting these weird melodies like dun, 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 like these sounds that it's not really a complete sound. It's like how you also come up with sounds. Like how do you come up with like sounds and you pick certain instruments to use to sort of bring in that sort of emotional vibe you're trying to give to the audience? Like how do you is like I'm just curious. I think maybe like as a film director, like our creative process here as a composer is the same but completely different because obviously you're working with music and I'm working with visuals. Like how do you come up with melodies and stuff like that?
Well, what's interesting is I've always been very visual.
Mm-hmm.
So even when I've composed things in the past that have nothing to do with the visuals, I create a story in my head and I see it in my head. So when I'm reading the script, I'm seeing it in my mind. Like, so I am a very visual thinker. And so I don't necessarily come up with music like right as I'm reading the script.
Mm-hmm.
I know like with you when we first met, and I think you weren't sure yet if you were going to have me be the composer. You had mentioned to me like roughly the story, and you had said to me like to compose from like the mother's perspective and to compose from the son's perspective, like the two different characters. And so and that that actually worked really well for me considering I'm a parent. And
Yeah.
so like that helped me kind of tap into that emotion, and kind of based off of your guidance, then I, kind of did those few demos and stuff. And but yeah, each thing is always different. So it's kind of like sometimes I will kind of like hear uh like a little bit of a melody in my head, and I'll just kind of like hum it or kind of plunk it out on the piano. And then sometimes I'll just like sketch it onto like, my staff paper or whatever. um and that sometimes it's like little bits and then I'll add on to it. Other times I have like a full thing, and sometimes it's like almost overwhelming because depending on kind of what happens, like
Yeah.
it's like I'll have like almost like all these different instruments all kind of going on like and
No way.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, like how, and like it's actually really weird because I know this kind of goes a little off topic of what you asked, but way before I knew I wanted to be a composer, like I full on heard like a whole orchestra in my head. Like I
Yeah.
could hear it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, and I remember thinking like, wow, that'd be really cool to like be able to do that. And now I can, you know, if I want to do like an orchestral piece, I can, and I know how to do that. So it's kind of like sometimes I'll get little bits of melodies and I'll kind of make a note of that. Other times it's kind of a fuller thing. And then I'll kind of already hear like the instruments that I want in it, unless unless I'm otherwise guided to maybe do different like instrumentation or whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I'll already kind of have that there, which is kind of funny because it goes against what some of my composition teachers have said in the past. They're like, well, put it all on the piano and then put it out to the instruments and, you know, and all this stuff. But for me, I'm just like, okay, if I do that, that just takes up more time because I already kind of know like what instrument I want to use and I can hear it in my head where it's coming in. So
You have to break the rules to make your own thing, isn't it? And I think I was gonna ask you, for me, sometimes like my creative process is weird. Like I wake up at 3 in the morning and I have this idea and I have to just do a voice note so I don't forget, right? So do lots of voice notes. Do you like record certain melodies as well, or do you just make a note of it somewhere? Do you record voice notes on your phone?
yeah, so sometimes I do that. Sometimes like I'll just like get an idea and I'm like, okay, it's just easier to just like quickly like a lot of times I'll kind of like type in a note or there have been times where it's, and this hasn't happened to me so much like as it did like when I was a teenager. I used to write a lot of just like songs, like not like instrumentals, but just like, you know, songs and stuff because I thought I wanted to be a singer. And so with that, it was weird because I would wake up and I would like hear this whole thing and I would like quickly try and record myself singing it so I didn't forget. But now it's just more of like I'll be like, okay, like I'll think of like a certain technique I'll want like the strings to be, or like I'll have
Yeah.
like this like idea and I'll be like, okay, so I'll quickly like scribble it out. But then I've had times where like it probably would have been better to just record myself saying it because then I look back and it's like a bunch of scribbles. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, I've always
So
actually said to people like, you know how people are always really creeped out about them losing their phones, like they're not locked up. I'm like, my worst fear is like people going through my voice notes and listening to everything because like 18 needs to go in a mental institution. What kind of sounds are these? So honestly, the creative process is very complex, right? It just has to work for you, right?
yeah. Yeah, totally. I think everyone it's different and I think that's okay. You know, I think the worst thing you can do is try and have it be like everyone else, you know,
Yeah,
like you know, because you do hear other people talking about like their process and you're like, and I think especially for like composers, you know, that are just starting and they look up to someone a lot of times and think, oh, I want to be just like that. It's like, no, be yourself. You could like be inspired by that, but like be
yeah.
yourself, like because you could maybe come up with something super cool that no one else has come up with. So
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. It's like it's very interesting because I think that we all look at the world differently, and I think it's always good. I always tell people, ask me like, when you're directing a movie, do you want to be like this person? I'm like, no, I just get inspired and then just go out there and do your own thing. Because I feel like the way we look at the world, the way we process information is differently, and the way we will translate that either screen or music or any other medium comes out different because we're different inside. So our touch to it will always make it unique in that way. And I think being honest with yourself as a creator is always important because you have your uniqueness and people will see that when you do that. So what would you say like is your best challenge? Like starting. You're on your keyboard, right? You're like, okay, this is the day I'm gonna do the first piece for the film. What's your biggest challenge, you'd say? No
um
challenges. It's a walk in the park for you, right?
no, but I do have to say actually with your film, like it went so much smoother than I expected, like so much smoother.
Oh,
But
so
I'll
that
get to
means
that.
I'm
Sorry.
good to work with then. That's good.
Yes, yeah. No, sorry, I'm keep like going off of, I keep like redirecting your questions. I don't mean to, but like I guess like what I did want to say is like immediately, like when we first met, I was just like, okay, like this is something that totally gives me like a similar vibe. And I feel like there's just certain things like I can't even remember what it is now, but I remember me saying something and like we just kind of like understand it.
Yeah.
And then like so I feel like we have like a good communication with that kind of stuff. And so like I do feel like, you know, because this is my first feature film, I was really trying to prepare myself mentally to be like, okay, Emily, like you've never done a feature film before, like, you know, expect things to, you know, be a little bit difficult or whatever. And like I did feel like it weirdly went strangely like smooth. Like I feel like if there was like a revision, it was maybe just like one revision, and like, you know, and like I was expecting there to be like, you know, a ton.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. You think that was easy, right? Wait when we're working on $100 million films, so where you have to operate, you have to direct all the 100 orchestras, you have to go to mobile recording places, you put your microphones. That becomes really complicated. But I think the
yeah,
process is always in your head. If you can communicate that to people, even if you're working in a big crowd, it just you're basically working
yeah,
with more toys and more, you have access to more stuff to work with. But I think if you can put it off as a single person to begin with, you'll be able to communicate that with the yeah. I'm glad that I communicated. My worst fear is always like trying to get another creative person to work with, and then I confuse them completely. I'm like, God, you know. But obviously, like even you, the way you broke down the film script was quite interesting. Like you had different sounds for different scenes, and it never sounded like you're repeating that. How do you stop yourself from repeating sounds in different scenes? Like, yeah, they
I think,
sound different, like
yeah,
different vibes.
I think for me, like uh with with your film, or like with anything that I work on, I always hope that it's something that I personally feel really passionate about, right? Like, and that I can really connect with. And I feel like I certainly really connected with like your story, and I could like relate to like things the character, I mean, you know, you can relate to different things with the characters. And so like usually I kind of, how do I put it? I kind of put my whole self into it. So it's like emotionally, I'm kind of like going through that like roller coaster with them.
Yeah.
And so it's like emotionally, I'm picking up on kind of like what the scene is showing. And so then that automatically kind of makes me think like, well, this sound could work, you know, because like, so I'm not necessarily having like a set thing of things written and trying to figure out like, oh, where can I place this, and change it up in that way. It's just more of like literally taking each little section of like, you know, where we've decided to have music, and deciding what works for that scene.
Yeah.
And then if it's like something like, you know, there was like a few like themes like that were actually initially the demos, right,
Yeah.
that were
Mhm.
used. And so sometimes I would be like, okay, well, this is applying to this part of the story with this character. I could use that theme, but subtly like change it. Or
Yeah.
I could, you know, use a different instrument, or use a part of it, but then change around something in the melody that maybe gives it more of an eerie feel as opposed to like a sentimental feel, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I think with each character, I did kind of think of like um, a type of sound that could be for that character, and
That
then try
represents
to
them.
apply
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Ah, that's quite interesting. And I think it's like yeah, yeah, you kind of like go with the flow. You don't have to think and make too many notes about it. It's like for me, like when I go to shoot a scene, sometimes if it's not a fight scene, we have to storyboard it, right? Uh Sometimes wake up, I've read through it, and then I know which angles I need to take, like maybe close-ups and close-up if an emotional scene, and then a master wide shot of them performing. But sometimes I like to go with the flow, see what we come up with on the day, because you get surprised when you just sit in your keys and you start playing based on what you just read, you come up with something naturally without you having to force it, you know? And I think that's why,
yeah,
like, I used to, when I was doing, I studied different. When I was in my college, some of the students we used to study with, they used to like plan every little shot they're gonna do like on something, and it's too over prepared. So boring for me. I'm like, let's get on location, because sometimes you get to location, things can change, and sometimes
yeah,
also you can have an idea of music, and then when you start playing and you watch the visuals, it doesn't work. So you have to sort of
yeah.
adjust to fit what's happening in the on the screen, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess one thing that I should mention is like in the difference between us, a lot of like the instrumentation, it was kind of a smaller instrumentation in the sense of like using like cello and piano and different sounds and things like that. I think if I'm doing something where it's more of like a full like orchestral sound, that I certainly kind of need to map out. So like for example with I don't know if I can mention, but like
You
with
can
the film
say
that
it,
I'm
yes.
currently working on for you. Now, how do I pronounce that? I don't want to butcher it. Is it Jelani or
Jelani?
Ja?
Jelani.
Jelani. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I used to know a lady named Jelani, so I always want to say Jelani.
Yeah.
But like with that, like I have like this very bizarre like sketched out thing on my staff paper, like my manuscript paper, where it's like, okay, this section has this and this has this and this is this, and then like I've sectioned out like a vibe for each like part of like this like story I've created in my head with your character.
Yeah.
Even though you told me the overall thing. So with that, like if it's like an orchestral thing, it does kind of have to be mapped out. So sometimes if I'm working on something and it's not working,
Mhm.
like then I think, okay, like I need to kind of go back to the days when my composition teacher would be like,
Yeah.
Emily, you need to like, stick up the form and like gradually add in the detail and things like that.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends what I'm working on. But I do feel like for the difference between us, like film, like I do feel like it was much more of like kind of
The
free
drama.
flowing. I kind of yeah
It's a drama. It's
yeah
different
free
from like if you're doing science fiction. Definitely, when we're doing bits of what TV show and movie, we're gonna have to go big with sounds, because you want to feel like you're in a space. You're in that
yeah
world. I mean, it's quite spacey, and you're talking about superheroes, so sounds have to kind of sound different from when you're doing a drama, isn't it? Right? So, what was your
yeah
experience working with our mixing engineer? Alex from Manchester who mixed the whole thing
yeah
and pull your sounds together. Honestly, like half the time when you guys were talking on phone or on Zoom calls, I didn't understand what you guys talking about. Like you got your own music theories. I'm like, huh? It's like I should have just been to a music class or something. I definitely did love this. But how was that like that collaboration with you working with him as well?
oh
Because
my
he's doing
gosh
like some
yeah
top projects as well. And then he came on board and you guys kind of like we are working out smooth and stuff. How was that for
he
you?
was yeah he was great. Like I'm so grateful that he was so like kind to me, because I was so like anxious about the whole thing. Because like of course like the film, everything went really like oddly smooth, and then as soon as it came to exporting everything, my computer freaked out and was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so like it like took me like, I want to say like one day I was like trying to export everything out, to like 5 or more hours to get it to just like get out of my computer. And so like I think with that like and then somehow it was, it's certainly a huge learning process. Like
Yeah.
it's like taught me like certain ways of exporting out things that like I think when I was like doing some, because I was using Logic Pro and he was using Pro Tools, and uh yeah, there was something with when I was sending him the files, some of the files, even though I exported it from like a very specific beginning to end point, like
Mhm.
some of it would keep like some of the effects I put on there would just keep going. And I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so he was so kind and like just like so helpful with like,
He's so
I
good at
think that helps.
explaining things, right? He's so good at explaining
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
I can say that because when I sent him the film, when I had a meeting with him and you, obviously you were gonna send him the file, so I didn't worry about that. But when it came to my part, I'm like, I started researching on YouTube. I'm like, how do you send the whole film to somebody who's in Manchester? Keep it the full chorus. I didn't understand. Then he sends me a document that explains everything step by step. Super
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that's why I like collaborations like that. Like you don't need to know everything, but having like yourself is the composer who is way more experienced in create music for film than me, and he's more experienced in that department. But together we could create some magic, because you communicate well
Yeah.
and just make
And
it
I
happen.
think, yeah. And I think that's so important, like for people to realize, like, it's okay if you don't know how to do something. Like,
Yeah.
I think hopefully you're, collaborating with people that are understanding and kind towards that. And then next time you know how to do it, like, um, because I think as a composer, like that's fairly, new, this is my first feature film. Like, I think that can be something that anyone that's into composing is kind of like fearful of, is like, okay, like who are these people we're working with? How are they going to respond to me? Am I going to sound stupid?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
and so like there's all like that kind of like fear. And so I think once you work with people that that have totally been in the same boat as you at one point in time, like, and then they know how to communicate things. I think that's the huge thing, is communicating.
Yeah, it's
Like, working
communicating.
with people that can't communicate, you know, that's where you have problems. So I think on your project, everyone seemed to communicate really, really well. So like, you know, it was I mainly talked to you, but then when Alex came on board, like, yeah, so that was good. It was a definitely learning experience for sure.
Yeah, it's like we all trying to make sure we get the best piece of work out there, because taking people in a strange darkness place and they're sitting for 2 hours to watch our movie, we want them to have a great experience. And I think this is what I love about the collaboration. I don't need to know everything. As long as I communicate what I want and make sure that we get all these emotion scenes, connect with our audience. You want to connect with them, feel what you want them to feel from what we've created. And I think we've done it really well with your collaboration. I didn't feel really stressed out. I felt like I was in the right hands. So thank you. So do you feel you enjoyed working with us?
What?
Do you feel you enjoyed working with me? And
Oh my gosh, yes, of course. Like, I loved it. And then I'm just like, oh, what can we work on next? Like,
yeah, we've got
like,
more stuff coming out next, for sure, for sure.
yeah, no, it's honestly been such a huge blessing. I'm like so grateful that like you took me on board, because, you know, many times, like, if you haven't worked on a feature film before, you reach out to people and they want absolutely nothing to do with you because they want the person that has done it 5 million times before you, you know? So it's like, I was like so grateful that like you took me on, because like I remember when I was like first talking to you about it, and then you're just like, well, you know, you can send us a demo, we'll see, you know, and I'm just like, oh, like, oh, please.
Fingers crossed. Honestly, like, yeah, it's great. I think for me, I believe in building relationships with people from the ground up, so that
Yeah.
we can all grow together. I cannot go and get someone who's going to charge me 100K to do a music score album at the moment, because I don't have the budget for that. But if I can find people that I can work with creatively, who are hungry, as passionate as me, and we grow together, we'll get to the stage where we get paid that amount of money. So that relationship has been great with you and Alex,
Yeah.
Axel, different people I've been collaborating with. I just want to grow with them so that we do
Yeah.
stuff together with time. So yeah, I do appreciate you saying that as well. So can you tell people your full name so they can find you on Spotify, so that when the album drops, you know what it is. So tell them, what do you want to tell them your full name? Obviously, it's gonna be here, but
Yeah. So it's Emily Frances Ippolito. And yeah, that's very,
And are
basically,
you
you
excited
know, you
about the
could,
film release
yes,
on the
super
big?
excited.
Yeah. Anyway, Emily, thank you so much. I enjoyed chatting with you. It feels
Yeah.
like we're going to the very first time we had this conversation about the film, and it feels like it's fresh and the excitement is still there, which is always great, especially
Yes.
when you create a project. And it feels like it's been forever, right? I can't wait for the film to come out. I can't say when
I
it's gonna come out
know.
yet, but yes, I'm excited. Hey guys, my name is Etienne Kuwawo, and I'm the film director for The Difference Between Us. I'm here to announce the film will be coming out July 2023. I can't announce the date yet. The date will be announced next month when the teaser trailer drops. So March 2023, the teaser comes out, and then we'll announce the date for the premiere, and there will be also a final poster that will be coming along with the teaser. The film is going to do a festival run in selected festivals, but we're keen to sort of push the film independently in selected cinemas around the world. So join us, support us, sign up, leave your email so that when the tickets go live, you'll be the first to be notified. This is going to be a huge year for us, and we are excited to sort of, share this story with you, share this film that's been made with love and commitment and support from all the creative people around Scotland in the community. So in the community of filmmakers, to be specific. So I'm very excited to share this story. Go and sign up, share this video, tell your friends, your family. There will be some family packages if you want to come and see the movie. We're going to do a tour with the film around the world. So yeah, don't forget to sign up and look out for the trailer and the final poster. It's going to be very exciting, and I can't wait to see you soon.